I can't make people fight.
Before the most controversial eye poke in UFC history, heavyweight champion Tom Aspinall was already being hailed as the next legend in mixed martial arts.
Who's next big heavyweight star?
Tom Aspinall, he's phenomenal. And he is, again, the next advancement of the evolution of the sport. He can do everything. That guy's got elite jiu-jitsu, he's got elite takedowns, his striking is outstanding.
I can do everything really well.
Tom Aspinall arrived on the scene like a storm, big, fast, and precise. A heavyweight who didn't move like a heavyweight. Fans called him the next big thing. But one night changed everything.
Guys, I just got poked knuckle deep in the eyeball. Why are you booing? What am I supposed to do about it? I didn't do the poke. I can't see.
So for the first day, I couldn't see anything.
Really?
Yeah, I thought I was blind. I literally thought I was blinded. It was awful.
But before that, we have to go back and see how we got here. Tom Aspinall's early career was built on one thing: finishing fights early. Most heavyweights take time to find their rhythm, but Aspinall often didn't give opponents the chance. His first professional opponent, a mid-card fighter on the British scene with a decent amount of experience, Michael Piszczek. Aspinall stopped him in 15 seconds. He just ran through him. Piszczek would continue fighting on the regional scene, and even addressed his loss to Tom.
I believe myself, I believe my strength. The last fight I just lost my mistake, so...
He would never win in mixed martial arts again. Riding high on his first pro win, Tom would go on to face Ricky King, a much more seasoned fighter in the sport. But Tom had no doubt in his mind that this was his time.
I just want to go all the way, man. I seriously, in my mind, if I didn't believe that I could do it, go all the way, I wouldn't do it. And like you said, by my top promotion, so I made up to be a second pro fighter.
And what was supposed to be another competitive test was another round one victory. King would fight just one more time before his career was done, never reaching the levels of any major promotion. Tom's next opponent was Satish Jamai, another regional pro with a mixed bag of some wins and some losses. But what was supposed to be a greater test was an even faster finish. Just 9 seconds is all it took. Afterwards, Jamai would trade some wins, draws, and losses before calling it a career in 2019 after another devastating knockout. But then Tom Aspinall's rise hit a bump.
Turned pro, had one or two fights, and then I actually lost like my third fight. But just because, again, I was just struggling for like guys to fight. Like in the UK, it was difficult. So I ended up fighting a guy who was, I mean, I wasn't very good at the time. I ended up fighting a guy who was a lot better than me, and I lost, whatever. Then I came back, had a couple more.
Aspinall faced off against Stuart Austin, who was a more experienced opponent at the time. But coming off 2 tough losses, Aspinall was the heavy favorite. But with a minute left in the second round, Austin would sink in a heel hook and end Aspinall's hype train, for now. While it was back to the drawing board for Aspinall, Austin would trade some wins and some losses, even getting TKO'd by a then-surging Johnny Walker. With a toss-up of wins and losses following this upset, Austin still competes to this day, and says he wishes he'd been the one to get heel-hooked that night, if it meant touching UFC gold.
I tell you what, like I'd reverse the roles. I'd have let him heel hook me if I could have been interim champion.
Yeah.
And going on, I think he's going to be he's going to be unified soon.
Don't think it works that way. After that loss, Aspinall didn't disappear. He got better, still finishing fights, but now with more control. Fighting next against debuting regional fighter Adrian Ruskak, and it didn't take long for Tom to bounce back big with another knockout. But something changed. This time, Aspinall wasn't there to win. He was there to dominate.
So then I went back to MMA, couple more fights, but then something kind of changed then.
Ruskak would go on to lose 3 more times before finishing his MMA career, 0-4. Next, Tom would face yet another setback against his next opponent, Łukasz Parobiec, being disqualified for illegal 12-6 elbows in the second round. Unfortunately, this fight is locked away in the archives for now. Up next was Kamil Basilak, another regional fighter with a few wins and losses under his belt. Tom desperately needed another win if he wanted to keep his UFC aspirations alive, and he did just that in one single round. Afterwards, Basilak would bounce back, even going on a small win streak before ending his career in 2019 with a victory. Tom officially caught the attention of Cage Warriors. In his first outing with the promotion, Aspinall faced Sofian Bukacu, who was riding on a 5-fight win streak. But the fight would end with Bukachu's leg snapping in half.
The first fight back, the guy broke his leg in like a minute. And so that wasn't great then.
I was in the back and I heard the noise.
I'd literally rather lose than that happen because it was disgusting. So I checked the kick and I seen his foot like wrap around this way, and then when he tried to stand on it, I knew what happened straight away. That was horrendous. That was the worst fight in my career by far.
Bukachu would later return to the cage, earning some wins and losses, and remains active in the regional scene. Aspinall's next test came in the form of Michael Ben Hamuda in Cage Warriors, another regional prospect who was hungry to climb up the rankings. It took less than 1 minute for Tom to send him crashing to the canvas. These round 1 finishes were becoming a trend. Michael would never fight professionally in mixed martial arts ever again. By now, Aspinall was clearly too good for this level. The UFC noticed, but interestingly, he didn't rush.
But I just thought between me and the big names, I just didn't have enough experience. I was aware that that's quite a big thing. But anyway, like we spoke to the UFC and we were like, oh, shall we take the UFC contract? And I was a bit like, I think I want to get more experience, you know. I think I want to finish this Cage Warriors contract and get as much experience as I can. And then Cage Warriors were basically like, listen, we can't match you anymore.
In early 2020, Tom Aspinall officially signed to the UFC heavyweight division. A mere couple of months later, after signing the contract to fight Jake Collier, COVID strikes, shutting the UFC down for now. Tom was once again shelved temporarily before getting rebooked to fight UFC veteran Jake Collier on Fight Island. When he finally got to the UFC, there was no slow start. No, let's see how he does. He knew what he was up against. In 45 seconds, Collier was out. No crowds, no distractions, only violence. After the fight, Tom had no more doubts. He knew this was exactly where he belonged.
It feels amazing, you know, but this is something that I've seen in my mind for a long time. So, to be honest, I just said to my dad there, I was looking across the octagon and I just felt completely normal. I felt just so relaxed, and this is just something that I've seen in my mind for a long time. So,
Collier would later leave the UFC on a negative 5-9 record, drop to light heavyweight, and suffer a shoulder injury loss at Shamrock FC in 2025. Tom would then face Alan Bodo, a newer, less tested fighter in the UFC. Bodo believed he had all the happenings to stop the Aspinall hype train once and for all.
I know people call me out and they think that I'm here to just be there, but I'm going to show the world.
But once the cage door closed, Tom would finish Bodo in the very first round with vicious ground and pound. Bodo would lose 3 more times with 1 no contest before exiting the UFC.
For the first time, Tom Aspinall, but now it's very good in the ranking.
Next, Tom Aspinall would face Andrei Arlovsky, a former UFC heavyweight champion, the very man who inspired Tom Aspinall more than a decade prior to pursue MMA.
Andrei Arlovsky walked on the scales and he was wearing some cream, I don't know what you guys would call it, we would call it joggers, maybe like
sweatpants.
Like sweatpants. Yeah, sweatpants, yeah.
Yeah.
And he had the no t-shirt on, and he had the big cross around his neck, and he was ripped, and he was big, and I remember, and he had the fangs in, I think, and he had the long hair as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember he put his arm up when he stepped on the scales, and the crowd went absolutely insane. And that was the moment I thought, I've got to do this stuff, man. Like, I want to be that guy.
This was different. Former champ, big name. It took 2 rounds for Tom to submit the former champion, which cemented Tom as a true up-and-coming prospect to look out for. Arlovsky would later go 4-4 in his next 8 bouts, leaving the UFC and claiming bare-knuckle boxing heavyweight gold. Not bad for the former champ.
My worried thoughts was about what the fuck, UFC might to kick me out, you know, and because I knew, like, I had a great camp before that fight and I was ready. I knew I'm gonna beat this guy, but just something happened and wow.
Up next was a rising star, Sergey Spivak. It was a clash of 2 tough heavyweights that Aspinall called for after winning his debut.
Why'd you call out Spivak?
I was very impressed with him. And I think me and him would be a good matchup.
That ended in a little over 2 minutes, with Tom adding another knockout to his record. Spivak would trade wins and losses.
When it comes to Tom Aspinall, I mean, he's also a rightful champion. He deserves everything that he asks for, whatever he wants, because he's on a very, very high level in this division.
At this point, it wasn't hype anymore. It was real. Now the fights got serious. real contenders, real pressure. Tom Aspinall was set to face off against crafty UFC vet Alexander Volkov in his home country. He was just as skilled and just as dangerous as Tom. With a little over 1 minute left in the very first round, Aspinall locked in a Kimura, forcing Volkov to tap. London erupted. But Volkov's career was far from over.
It's no any excuse for this fight. He just was better than me. I had a good shape with this fight. Everything was good. It was some mental maybe problem with all the things happen in the world. Some of this, but it's the things that happen in our sport.
Tom would go on to face top heavyweight contender Curtis Blades, but would suffer a devastating setback in his title shot dreams after blowing out his knee in the first 15 seconds of their fight. Curtis remains at the top of the division, but would never fully break through. After some time away while Aspinall recovered, the division would move on, but Tom was hungry.
Surgery, and then I was unsure whether my career was going to be over or not. And that was a massive, massive turning point in my life, not just in my career, but in my life. That really, really gave me a chance to think and slow down and figure out what's important and what isn't.
Aspinall returned to the cage against veteran Tybura. After a year away from the sport, hungrier and more determined to make a statement and cement his spot back at the top.
I think he expects me to come out all guns blazing,
right,
and slow down as the rounds go on, and he'll take over. That's what he thinks is going to happen.
In his most dominant performance to date, he looked like a man on a mission, securing a TKO in the very first round. Tybura stayed active, winning some, losing some.
Do you think Aspinall is the most dangerous fighter in the division?
I think so, yes, right now, sure. He proved it. He proved it in this performance.
It was finally Tom's OT at UFC Gold. Aspinall would face Sergey Pavlovich for the interim UFC heavyweight championship. Pavlovich was known as one of the scariest punchers in the division.
Pavlovich.
Oh my God.
That's the boy.
Yeah.
Sergey Pavlovich. That's the Russian Fedor. I mean, the Russian Francis, rather. He comes out, guns blazing on people, just like Francis used to.
Can Sergey Pavlovich be a star?
And in 1 minute, Tom had finally reached his dream of becoming UFC champion. With the division being held up by Jones, Tom's next big test came against a man who defeated him previously. Well, kind of, Curtis Blades. But this time, Tom would leave no doubts and finish Blades in the very first round.
Hello, John. I have nothing against you personally, but I just think I'm better than you. I just know that I can beat you in a fight, so I'm coming for it.
Now, a fight with UFC legend Jon Jones was set. There was one fight everyone wanted, Tom Aspinall versus Jon Jones. The new generation versus the old, and it just never happened.
Aspinall just had a close fight, and people are already writing him off.
Yeah.
His journey hasn't even started yet, and he's already almost moved on.
Yeah.
Jones had the belt, but injuries, timing, excuses, and then retirement took that fight off the table.
He changes nothing if I beat him. Beating Tom is just like beating Cyril Gane. I'm not ducking Tom Aspinall. The Tom narrative came out of nowhere. He won a belt, and now suddenly I'm ducking him. I've never had negotiations to even fight him, if this makes sense.
No build-up payoff, no passing of the torch, nothing. For Aspinall, that matters, because beating Jones would have answered everything. Instead, it's just one of those what-if fights, and in MMA, those always stick around. After being bumped up to undisputed champion following the exit of Jon Jones, Tom's next biggest test had arrived, Cyril Gane.
No, I think that if I hit anybody, I can knock anybody out. And I think that Cyril is no exception.
Technical, smart, one of the best strikers at heavyweight. What was supposed to be a huge fight ended in disaster. Early in the fight, Gane accidentally poked Aspinall in the eye, badly. Aspinall blinded. The fight was stopped. No contest. Just like that, the division on pause. Now, months removed, Tom has been out of the cage due to multiple surgeries, but the division had to move on. Former two-division champion Alex Pereira is looking to make history and become the first triple champion in the UFC ever. His opponent, Cyril Bondois Gane, at the White House. With the lack of support from UFC President Dana White on Tom's situation.
I can't make people fight if they feel they've been injured. Only Tom knows what happened. Could he see? Couldn't he see? Could he continue? Only he knows that.
Tom seems to have brought on someone who truly seems like he has his back, the owner of Matchroom Boxing and one of the most prolific figures in the boxing world, Eddie Hearn.
When I spoke to Eddie, it just seemed like it worked. It made a lot of sense to me. I think as UFC fighters, we are in contracts that we can't change, but there's a lot of value that we could make outside of the cage as well.
Given the landscape of the Hearn versus White interviews, is this just about fighting, or is it business?
I look at you and I think you are one of the biggest stars in global fight sports.
Some surprising news earlier today. Tom Aspinall was signed with Eddie Hearn as a manager. You obviously have some issues with Eddie. What did you think about that news and what do you make of that decision?
We don't have any issues with Eddie. They can get whoever they want to represent him. Tito Ortiz used to represent people and we got it done.
Tom Aspinall came into this sport finishing fights in seconds. He became champion without ever getting the fight he deserved. He defended a belt that wasn't even the real one. He waited patiently while John Jones played retirement roulette. And then, just when the stars finally aligned, he got 2 fingers shoved knuckle deep into his eyeballs by a man whose nickname literally means good kid. The heavyweight division has never had a champion quite like Tom Aspinall. Fast, humble, devastating, and somehow always the guy standing next to the burning car rather than driving it. But here's the thing about Tom Aspinall. Every single time this sport has tried to sideline him, a blown knee, a missing Jones, a French finger in the eye, he's come back harder, faster, and more dangerous than before. So wherever this goes next, whether it's a rematch with Bon Doy, a showdown with Pereira, or Dana White finally picking up the phone, one thing is certain: Tom Aspinall isn't going anywhere.